Welcome to Brand Builders TV. Deep dive topics, tools and resources brought to you by global thought leaders from within the Brand Builders Club. This show gives you access to the strategies that you can use to move forward with ease and flow in every area of your life and business. In today's show, Jeannie's going to be examining the game of midlife love. Learn it, model it and get shit done. Let's go.
Hello, this is Jean Macdonald, the Midlife Woman's mentor. And today I'm going to talk to you about beating the odds in the game of midlife love. Now, before that, I want to go as a quick summary of the things that we have been talking about in the first two episodes, because the first thing I was doing was talking about the midlife transition being a natural process. Some people call it a midlife crisis, and it can be, but the more you know about it, the more you understand about it, the more you can prepare yourself for what lies ahead, the less of a crisis it needs to be, and more of the tradition or transition that it should be. Now, the odds against midlife women finding a satisfactory relationship in later life get longer and longer for various reasons, which I shall go into in due course. But in my first talk, I talked about the midlife transition being rather like the transfer from a caterpillar to a butterfly. And if you understand, if the what would you call it when it's inside the chrysalis is inside a cocoon, it wakes up, wonder what's going on, very uncomfortable in this chrysalis. But if she knows what's happening or what's going to happen, then she would be reassured. In the second talk, I talked about the 6 areas which are most likely to hold midlife women in the chrysalis. And these are the sticky things which she has to shed as part of her process of emerging, ultimately as a beautiful butterfly. And these were things like health and wellness, money and wealth, financial freedom, that would be. The next one is love partnerships, what I'm going to be talking more detail about now. And then we go on to self-confidence, self-esteem, and then friends and family, and finally finding your purpose. So those 6 are the areas. Now, if we go on to looking at all those areas, I can't claim to be an authority on all of those things, and so I bring in experts, but who know a lot more about it and have a lot more experience than I have, even though I know the broad theory. What I do know about is relationships between people in middle life. And as you may remember, I've talked about my book, Love, Sex and the Midlife Woman, which I published in 2016. And since then, I've been looking for ways that I can help midlife women understand and make their journey more easy. So today, we're going to be looking at love relationships. That's really a euphemism for someone who you hope you've got a stable relationship. You sleep in the same bed, or at least stay in the same, live in the same house, and sometimes in the same bed. So it's to distinguish it from other relationships in your life. So let's be honest about all this. And I want to talk about the changing fortunes of men and women. So one of the things that I talk about are the changing seasons of love. So broadly, there are 3 seasons of love. Firstly, romantic love, which all the songs are about and all the poems and all that lovely stuff. It's nice at the time, but unfortunately it doesn't last. It has a shelf life of a couple of years usually. Then we move into a longer haul called working love, which involves bringing up a family, setting up a home, developing a career, and that is, by its very title, working. And then finally, once those things are done and have run their natural course, moving into the third area, which is mature love. And that's the area where I've specialized my interest in, because I think there's a lot to learn. And it's very different from both the other 2 areas. And the big difference is that we have now become a complete person in our own right. Because previously we needed a partner in order to feel complete. Now we've pulled it off to the extent that we are capable of being an independent being who can make your own choices. So on this journey through the period which I call working love, women will have had their disappointments and found in some cases that love has not quite worked out. It could be that their partner, after many years of apparent stability, has walked out, or that the woman realizes that after many years of stability, love has walked out. Either way, she feels what I call a love deficit. She doesn't have the love, and women need a platform of love to support them in all the other activities that they undertake. Now, it may need to be more rational. You see, the thing about being sure love is we are no longer as impetuous or swept along by romance and hormones as we were in our youth. And so we do have the ability to stop and take stock and decide if we are going in the right direction or not. Sometimes it's difficult, but we can do it. Now, what I've wanted to say is that um, the fortunes of men and women are very different in middle and later life. And let's start by looking at the men. And these affect, of course, the odds on finding a suitable partner. Although, as I've said, with the right knowledge, the right attitude, then you can do better than the odds. So the first thing is there are less men than women in midlife because, unfortunately, quite a few die in their 40s. And I'm sure you won't have to look round hard to find examples of men who died quite suddenly, often in their 40s. So that reduces the number of available men. Then there's a second group who are really not suitable because they've got tangled up in all sorts of things like alcohol, drugs, or worse, which make them a very bad bet as a potential partner. The third thing I mention about them is that many of them have suffered setbacks in their ability to earn money. So maybe the job or career that they were doing they is gone out of date. Maybe they had what they thought was a secure job, which then found suddenly they were made redundant. And all of these things can lead to them suddenly not being able to support a family or even themselves. Others have gone on to dissipate the money that they did have, they had accumulated, sometimes by having to run two families. But one way or another, a lot of midlife men end up without much money, and they're not always honest about it. The other thing is that many men in middle life, by the time they got to midlife, are sick and tired, and that makes them sick. So many of them have potential lifetime maladies and will make them invalids in their later years. And you need to be aware of that because if you're looking at someone who's going to support you or provide equal love and support, you do have to take account that some of them just are not going to be able to do that. And they'll want you to look after them. I came across an expression in an American site saying that a lot of midlife men are looking for a nurse with a purse. So, and you will have heard me say in other things that all the gold diggers these days tend to be middle-aged men. On the other hand, women are on the up. Firstly, they're more employable because they have a lot of skills which they acquired during their time of running a career, household, and husband, all at the same time. They're very versatile and very flexible and very willing. So those skills also equip them, if that's what they want to do, to start a small business. And many women do. In fact, that is a big trend across the planet. Women in middle life starting their own businesses because the goal is to become financially independent. So you're not looking for a man to provide the money for you to live in your old age. You provide it for yourself. The second thing that women have got going for them in middle life is they've learned who they are and what they want, often by the experience of not having what they want and not having the choices that they would have hoped for. As a result of that, it really toughens them up in knowing what they want and standing out for it. The third thing is they're much better at networking and building alliances than men are. You've heard the expression, men compete, women cooperate. Well, these cooperative partnerships, of which you see many of these days, are a great boon for women because it means they no longer have to do everything on their own. And fourthly, once midlife women have got through the transformation, including the menopause, then they realise that they are tougher and healthier than they were in the youth often, but also than the men around them. And it's proved by the fact that they live longer. So for all those reasons, women have reason to rejoice, and I believe that they should take that into account and really start to stand up for themselves. The other thing is a couple of other things I would mention about men. I'm not knocking men. I feel sorry for those who've fallen by the wayside. Not all have, but there are all these factors are unfortunately going the same way. But as men age, their characters also harden. When they were younger and more lively, they would often mask their character. Well, maybe it wasn't that obvious. But as they get older, their underlying nature or temperament starts to assert itself. And the second thing is, as men lose testosterone, which they do produce less of it as they get older, most of them look for an easier life, which can make them lazy. So now you know the truth. See, let's go on and see how we can utilize that information to our advantage. How can I be certain, you might ask before we go on, about these things that I'm saying about men and women, and also the things I'm going to be saying about the types of midlife men you're likely to encounter? Well, it just seems to fit the majority of midlife men who I encounter. Not as potential partners, other people's partners, but once you know what you're looking for, you see the same thing cropping up again and again. And the main thing to remember is that you have a lot more going for men. So you no longer have to take pity on them or be beholden to them in whatever condition you find them. So that gives you the power and independence to take your time in choosing or not choosing a partner. So my principal message to midlife women is in finding love from midlife men is you need to take control, but not in a masculine way, not doing what men do, but instead using your feminine power, which in this day and age has been somewhat dismissed or discredited, but deserves to be revisited. Now, I've found the best way to represent the game of midlife love is with help from the game of chess. So you would no doubt notice what I have got behind me, which is a checkerboard, a large version of the chessboard, really. And I want to go use this, and I need to look down here and say that in chess, along the back row, for those who remember playing chess, or maybe you still play chess, there are four men, and they're represented by the drawings up here. I'll come back to them individually, but you have the knight, the bishop, the rook, and the king. Four men and one woman, the queen. And the interesting thing about these men is they all do different things, and they're very pleased with what they do. But the interesting thing is the woman can do all of those and makes a lot less fuss about it. Does that sound familiar? Well, let's have a look at these individual characters. Now I'm going to point as best I can. I'll give you a little more sight of the board behind me. So second one in is on that side. No, it's on that side. Now, which way have I pointed? I've got to point that way to go that way. There we go. Second along, my finger is just about on it. Yes, that's the knight, which is represented by a horse. And the reason is that knights rode horses in olden days. And it's actually very helpful because the knight has certain characteristics. Yes, on the chessboard, as you will remember, his ability is very distinctive. Nobody else can move like he does, even the queen actually, because he can move 2 squares forward and 1 to the side. And he can do this in any direction, forwards, backwards, sideways. And that means he's potentially has many options. And he likes it that way. He's a warrior and nimble and adroit. He has some clever tricks up his sleeve, and that can be very useful. He's a bright, cheery fellow most of the time, but he's also inclined to get depressed if things aren't going his way. He can be impetuous, and he chases after his latest impulse and can be tripped up by his own cleverness. The positive features about the knight: he's likable and attractive. He's optimistic, willing, cheerful, talented, and ingenious. And the negative features is he can be impetuous in the pursuit of the prospect of glory. It makes him foolhardy at times. Overall, you could say he's clever, attractive, but unreliable. And he does not like to be stuck, unable to move, and he hates being bored. So my view about this is he is probably a better playmate than a long-term partner, or a long-term reliable partner. Now, you gather that I'm reading some of this because I've extracted this from a course that I produced 2 years ago, called How to Find Love in Middle Life, with some help from the game of chess. So I wrote down fully the characteristics, but in the course, How to Find Love course, there's a lot more information about him, how he behaves, how he is when you meet him, how he gets on when you stabilize in a relationship, hopefully, and how he ages. So all that information I had to leave behind because there wasn't time to cover all that detail. So let's go on to the next character, and that is the bishop. No, that's that finger. No, it's that finger going that way. My finger is now on him. I hope you can see him. But I'm not able to show you the slides, which are part of the thing, which can show, of course, the full figure. So what about the bishop? Well, he's a politician, and he spends a lot of time working things out in his head. The positive features are he's attractive, astute, and can be charming and persuasive. He's usually very good with words and is a good negotiator. On the other hand, the negative side is he can be devious and scheming. He is attracted by power and money and usually manages to get some of both. He is a river that runs deep. His main motivation is to know what's going on, and once he does, to control others. He maneuvers to put others under the influence or under his influence by using his power. Interesting that he's a bishop, isn't it? So he also likes to keep things to himself. He's secretive and he's suspicious of other people. He plays his cards close to his chest and is very careful not to reveal his weaknesses and keeps his defenses up. He's a good ally when it suits him, but he's also always watching the odds and may well be playing a double game. His power and money make him superficially attractive, and he can use those to advantage to fascinate women, even though they know he's dangerous. They can even see that dangerousness as being attractive because he's a potential protector. Overall, you could say he is attractive, influential, but untrustworthy. So why would you get involved? Well, unfortunately for some women, he's a challenge. And he can be controlled with difficulty, but you have to have your wits about you and play the long game. So let's go on to the next one. The next one is the rook. Now, where's he? I think I'm going to go this way, and I think he's at the far end. Yes, he is. I can see that. Far end. It's got my finger more or less on him. There's a thing over it, but you go that way. That's the rook. And he's conveniently also known as a castle. So he has a headdress which looks like the turret of a castle. Now, what's he like? Well, he's a very straightforward and pleasant fellow. He's solid and reliable. Sounds good so far, doesn't it? On the board, he moves in straight lines and squares. He's a very good piece to use as a defender and a protector. of you. The positive features are he's dependable, loyal, and supportive. He can be friendly, open, and easygoing. And he's often very skilled with his hands, good at DIY, enjoys working with machines and intricacy. However, on the negative side, he can be unimaginative and predictable. He doesn't look ahead to plan or predict, and he lives for the moment as not particularly emotional or excitable. But he makes a stable partner. But once he's settled into middle life, he tends to specialize in doing a few things very well. They can become his exclusive preoccupations, and he's not keen on moving outside those. Overall, you could say he's solid and reliable, but comfortable and dull. But you could say in every sense he's square. So you can see the good and not so good. It depends on what you want. So now we come to the king. Now, where's the king? I think that he's there. That one. And what can we say about the king? Well, look at the game of chess. He's like a father figure to the queen. He's very fond of her, but he can't do much to help her because he can only move one square at a time. On the board, he can move in any direction, but only one square at a time. So he's invulnerable to being put in check. And for that reason, the queen has to keep a close eye on him, because if he's trapped and cannot move out of check, or be sacrificed by sacrificing another piece, then checkmate, and their side has lost the game. Positive features of a king is he's gentle, benign, and wise in some areas. He encourages and supports the queen, and he loves her and admires her. The negative features is he can be slow-moving, and that makes him vulnerable. He can be a bit of a dreamer, and his attention is often dispersed. He has big dreams for the future, things he's going to do, and he does make some progress towards them, but the queen may be irritated at the slowness of his progress. So many midlife women feel they'd like to have a king in their lives as a replacement for the father they either did have or they didn't have. However, kings are quite rare, and it's unusual to find a ready-made king available. Kings are usually cultivated over a period of time by a queen who has seen his potential to be a king in one of the other male pieces. Even if he's a widower, the characteristic that made him a king for his former wife may not be a good fit for your needs. Overall, he will be a stable partner, but he requires a lot of maintenance and TLC. So those are the four pieces. I should mention briefly the pawns. And you see pawns on either side of me. So the pawns, they are a collection of miscellaneous characters who are not contenders for the queen's serious attention. They think they are, but the queen doesn't. But she uses them to advance her interests. And at times she'll actually sacrifice them to advance those interests. Pawns are like friends of both sexes, discarded suitors, gay friends, children, relatives, and other people that the queen can use to hide behind or ask to perform favors. It's very useful for the queen to have a range of friends and acquaintances who she can deploy as cover, excuses, or diversions in her dealings with the more powerful players who she does have a continuing interest in. So not much more needs to be said about the pawns. But what about the queen? Well, the queen is able to assess and manage her fellow players. She can position them on the board where she wants them. This is part of feminine power coming through. She needs to maintain good relations with potential suitors in her life, as it's unlikely that she'll find one who's capable of meeting all her needs for the whole of her life. So if you're a midlife woman looking for more love from a new partner or an old one, then maybe you should look at the course, How to Find Love in Middle Life. And I'm giving out a link. I'll read it when I've got more light at the end, where you can go and see a video which will introduce it. Actually, it's here now. Let me try and decipher it. It's HTTPS and all that, bit.ly, which is bit.ly, bit.ly, but with a dot between the bit and the ly, / find love midlife. No, find love in midlife. So if you can remember that, put in bit.ly, find love in midlife. That will take you to a video where I talk in much more detail and with nice big pictures of all the chess pieces and what they do and how they behave. So if I can just summarize, there's another thing I want you to do. All of this is very fine, and I've galloped through it, so you've only probably got a very limited feeling for these men. So I encourage you to go and look at the free video where you'll get a lot more information. Not so much on how they behave later, but in terms of recognition, because that's the first thing. I'd like you to, on a piece of paper, make a list of all the men in your life, past and present, and against each of them, just note their main characteristics and see if they fit any or of the stereotypes that I've talked about. There are not many who are going to be 100% like any one stereotype. They may have elements of more than one, but usually there is, as in bridge, where you have 4 sets of cards, but when you have a hand, I think it's of 13, you have a strong suit, which is the one which is probably more than half, and then weaker suits right down to 0. Similarly, in these characteristics, their strongest suit will be the one you can observe. And having done that, you're in a position to know how to handle them and how to behave with them. So the second thing is, having made this list of men, go through and then compare them with the video and the information there. Now, if you don't have a partner or boyfriend at the moment, why not create an identity kit based on these 4 types of the type who would most interest you as a midlife woman for a potential long-term relationship. I do say long-term relationship because relationships for life are quite rare. If you look at the statistics, only 6% of couples actually see their golden wedding. That's 50 years. Sometimes they die, but much more often they split. So the mythology around marriage until death do us apart, sadly, is discredited by the statistics. So if you find in middle life a good relationship that lasts 5 to 10 years, you're doing very well. So it's quite possible that you may have more than one during the second half of your life. But be prepared for that. In fact, enjoy the game, because you don't have any of the downsides that you used to have before when choosing a partner. So I'm coming to the end now of what I want to say about love and midlife. I'll just go back and reiterate the most important thing and a couple of other things that come from the course. I said it's very important for women to become aware that they have the upper hand in the game of midlife love. They have all the advantages, and most men don't have all those, don't have all of them. They may have a few, but not all. But it's important that the woman takes that control. And there are things in the other parts of the program, which I talk about, the midlife transition, where they can exercise those other things. Money is one of them. Not being able to support yourself in middle and later life makes you vulnerable to trying to find someone else to do so. Worst case scenario, it's the state, and they're not very generous. Or you may have to, well, as I said, there are not many men around with money who are available to you. So getting one of those things straight, but nonetheless, it's a state of mind. Once you realize that you are now no longer the suitor, that they are the suitor and you're the suited, as it were. And the analogy which I use it here is like going for a job interview. You are the employer. You're the one who's drawn up the job description, which I just mentioned earlier. What are your ideal characteristics for the partner you're looking for? And you're interviewing the men who come to you to see how closely they fit your template. And the thing to bear in mind is all these men that I've talked about, the different types of men, the knight, the bishop, the rook, and the king, although their characters are pretty dissembled, they are very capable of putting on the charm and initially convincing you that they're otherwise. That's why you have to be patient and take your time before you allow them into your life intimately, because you may find, if you leave it till later, you may find that they're not all they were cracked up to be. So that's an important role change. And if you're involved in internet dating, I can do a whole course on internet dating. It's very important to take that attitude. I'll just give you one tip from internet dating. I've been on some sites and looked at how women portray themselves in the photographs, let alone what they say. And sadly, some of them don't put even their 1 foot forward, let alone their best foot forward. And in the photographs, some of them really do not do themselves credit. So the strategy that I recommend there is to put your best foot forward. Take a glammed up photograph of yourself and put that on there. And take the attitude is, yes, I can look like that for the right person. I don't look like that every day. I don't want to look like that every day. But that's already you taking control of that situation. So my time is up and I need to draw to a close. I hope that these pointers for how to do better in the game of midlife love, you may be doing very well, so please don't let me discredit that. But in order to do better, you need to understand what the really odds are for and against you. Now, this is Jean Macdonald, the Midlife Woman's mentor, signing off till next time, and we'll be looking at the later stages of the midlife transition. So in the meantime, it's Jean Macdonald, the Midlife Woman's mentor, signing off for now. Bye.
I hope that you've enjoyed the show today as much as we've enjoyed making it for you. If you've got anything out of this episode, please do tell someone else how they can subscribe to the Brand Builders TV channel at youtube.com/brandbuilderstv. Why not join us at our next Brand Builders Thinkubator, a global mastermind that we run every week to take away the loneliness of being in business on your own. For more information and to book your place, visit light.brandbuilders.club/Thinkubator. That's light.brandbuilders.club/Thinkubator. Until next time, be the ripple that you wish to see in the world, and we'll see you soon.